Hello, I'm Sunny Muffin, and this is my Evergate 100% speedrun submission for the marathon. This is Evergate. It is a indie game developed by Stone Lantern, and it is a 2D puzzle platformer style of game. We're going to be making our way through 76 different levels, and each of those various levels are going to have a bunch of different collectibles that we're going to have to get in order to meet the 100% definition. And I will dive a little bit more into that as the game kind of progresses. This is a commentated after the fact run of my 4620 world record in this category, and there really hasn't been anything that's like really changed in the game since then. Just better execution and things like that will improve that time and get me a little bit closer to my estimate. But yeah, so this is Evergate. We control Key. Key is this little floaty looking Ori character right here, and we are going to be exploring some of Key's memories throughout the afterlife. So Key died and is having some struggles kind of accepting some things that happened in his life, and we're going to be kind of recreating some of those memories and working our way through some various levels. So right here, right off the bat, we're getting introduced to the game's unique mechanic. So it is a puzzle platformer, and we're going to be using this soul flame mechanic to interact with various things around us. So the main thing that we are going to be interacting with is the source. So if you look where I am shooting right now, you can see the white on the walls. That is source. Source is going to be mentioned several times throughout this run, and it is very, very important to the soul flame mechanic. The next thing we are introduced to is crystals. So these little green blobs right here, these are just generic crystals, but as we progress through the game, we're going to be getting different types of crystals. When you connect Key to a crystal through the source, so like making a line, Key, crystal, source, you're going to get the bonus of that crystal. Those being generic crystals was just kind of the tutorial introducing you to that mechanic. But you're able to kind of see that when you connect with them, you're going to have some crazy things happen. The game does introduce one of these type of crystals in every world, and it's going to keep adding progressive layers of complexity to the game. So that's where the main difficulty curve stems from. Being a 100% run, we're going to have to do a bunch of different collectibles, and the difficulty curve is going to kind of be all over the place, because some levels are much harder to 100% that are early in the game. But yeah, I'll kind of dive into the definition once we actually get into the game. So we are in the library right now. This is the game's hub, and where we're going to be traveling to the different memories that Key has. So our first stop is China. We're going to be heading, the next two worlds are both located in China. You're going to kind of get that Asian theme with the aesthetic here, and we'll be moving through a bunch of levels. So these first crystals that you see right here are boost crystals. They're the little yellowy ones. When you connect with them, Key goes that direction. And if you go to the side of them, you can get really, really good horizontal quick movement. And if you go directly above them, you can get maximum vertical movement. This level right here is one of the hardest ones to 100% in the game, and you're going to see the 100% definition is those three things you see on the top right portion of the screen. That first one is essence. Every level has 3 essence. There are these little translucent like flower type things, so you need to collect all 3 of those for each level. The next thing you need to do is to break every single crystal for each level. This is a little bit more, it's not as intuitive as it sounds, because a lot of levels you can complete without breaking every crystal. So I need to get that counter to the maximum amount of crystals for each level. I believe the level with the most crystals has 30, so these levels are going to quickly get more complicated and more complex. The last thing is the speedrun timer. This one, this is a speedrun. Cool, we like to go fast. So in general, the speedrun timer does just kind of do itself as you move through this game quickly. There are levels that are very, very tight with getting the speedrun timer, collecting all the crystals, and collecting all the essence in one go. There are a couple of levels where it is either too tight that I deem it not worth going for in a speedrun, where you can just complete one of the other metrics first, or just complete the speedrun metric, restart the level, and complete the other 2 in order to fulfill the 100% category. So we're kind of moving throughout this China world, the secret garden, and we get introduced to these flowers. These flowers are really, really wonky. You have to use a boost crystal in order to break them open, and within them you're going to find a different crystal type. These will appear as we move throughout some various other levels, and they don't always have a boost crystal in them. When we get introduced to more crystal types, we will see more and more various things into them. Important to note about the boost crystals is they also do break these boxes that you're seeing, as well as you do have to connect them with the source. So that breaks your source of source, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to pass through the level. So you kind of have to plan a little bit ahead of time. Most of these levels, when you're doing them casually, you can kind of just sit there, take a look at them, take them in, and then kind of see what the most efficient way to make it through that level is. That's kind of what makes this more of a puzzle game. The first few levels are pretty linear, and there's really not a lot of like different things you can do. But we're moving on to the second world here. This is still China, but this is the Dark Woods. In the Dark Woods, we're introduced to a couple of different mechanics that are going to appear throughout other levels. We have the breakable terrain. So these little leaf things right here, whenever you stand on them, they're going to disappear fairly quickly after you stand on them. This is also going to be in later levels in the form of ice. So it's the exact same mechanic, just a different skin. And then we also have the earth crystals. So these little box with like a pink V shaped thing on them are earth crystals, and they are one of the more broken crystals in the game, because there's a bug associated with them that the devs have acknowledged and just kind of left it in for us, which is pretty cool. I always like it when devs communicate with their speedrun communities and let us have our fun. But the point of earth crystals is when you connect with them, they create a platform underneath your feet. Now, if you are midair and you do it fast enough, you can regain your jump off of them and jump again. So there's a couple of places that this is abused. Mainly, it's more in the any percent run, because it saves a little bit of time, not having, like, you get a double jump off of it, and there's some cool shortcuts you can do. But a lot of times you just do it unintentionally and get yourself a little bit more height. The next mechanic that we're introduced to, this game throws a lot of various mechanics at you, and we go through it pretty quickly, are these crows. So there are several levels within the Dark Woods that whenever you break a crystal, it is going to send a crow flying at you from the left-hand side of the screen. For the most part, they're pretty benign. Like, I have them all routed out, and I know when they're going to appear and how I'm going to dodge them. And that's all kind of planned ahead of time. But your first time running through a lot of these levels casually, they could be just a gigantic pain. So one thing I did not mention is the artifacts. So if you see in the upper left-hand corner, I currently have the Lucky Frog artifact equipped. This is increasing my boost power by 20%, but anytime I use a boost crystal, it is going to be 20% better. As you progress throughout the game, you're going to unlock some various artifacts. Only a handful of them are really useful in a speedrun setting, and I will go ahead and point those out as they come up. One thing to note about those birds is they will knock out those breakable platforms along the bottom, and they can just be a real nuisance. So you do have to plan out when you're going to spawn them and how you're going to make sure that you work your way around them. So this is the last level of the Dark Woods. I make a little bit of a mistake there, but it's not that big of a deal. The timer on this level is very, very lenient. Yeah, that's the second world of the game. So every time that you finish a book, which is each of these worlds is contained within a book of keys memories, you're going to go back to the library and do progress the story a little bit. Most of these sections are fairly short. You just kind of go back, do a little bit of a chat with the dude here, and then you can get sent back into the next book. So coming up, we have the Lunar Festival. This one is probably one of the more technical worlds in Evergate. You gain access to the fire crystals here. So fire crystals they're kind of a mixed bag. So one thing that when you connect them with source, they burn that source and any connected source to it. So right here in the beginning of the level, you see that there's some boxes connected to that source. When I use that first fire crystal, it burns all the way in both directions, and any source is burned up within that. This is going to be important as there's an artifact with this ability that we gain access to a little bit later on, and it speeds up some levels, and it just makes some levels a little bit more precise, a little bit harder to do. So this level right here, we're also going to be using one of the fire crystals components that these boxes right here, I really don't know how to describe them. They're kind of like steam engines on a train, but when you fire them up, they move in the direction that the arrow is pointing. There's a couple of levels that are going to be using these boxes, and we're going to have to move some of them out of the way and move some of them into the way to be able to access all of the various things we need for 100%. So right there, we gained access to the Firecracker Tail. The Firecracker Tail is, in my opinion, probably the best artifact in the game. It just increases your base speed by 25%, and you get access to it super early. Like, this is World 3, and we already have access to one of the best movement artifacts in the game. There is a no unlockables version of this run that you can't use any of these artifacts, and it just changes some of the strategies a little bit, and it is slower because you don't have a base 25% extra move speed. Next thing you're seeing here is these dragons. So these dragons, they activate when you light them with a fire crystal, and they act as a moving platform. None of the dragons in this section are like terribly crazy. They basically don't go very far, but they do burn source when they touch it. So you do have to be mindful of where these dragons are moving and how you're going to use them to access the essence and the various crystals that I need to break in order to accomplish the 100%. Once you do 100% this game though, there are a set of 10 extra levels that you can do that are like master levels that are just absolutely ridiculous, and they have these flying dragons just going all over the place. But I will be submitting that as a donation incentive for Evergate, so it'll be cool to see those runs done very quickly as well if we're able to get this accepted. Another thing you might be noticing is I have 2 different inputs on my input viewer. So this game can be played on both controller and on keyboard and mouse, and I use both. That is mainly preference. I know a lot of runners really prefer keyboard and mouse because it is a little bit more precise than controller. I like the comfort of controller, so I'll use controller primarily, and I'll use keyboard mouse when I need that extra precision. So when you're controlling this game on controller, you control key with the left stick, and you control the soul flame and the direction it's coming out with the right stick. Controller has a little bit of an advantage. It gets a feature known as I think it's like auto targeting or auto aim. It'll try to find the nearest crystal and the nearest like connectable source with that crystal, and try to make that connection. If your direction isn't exactly straight down, it's going to try to like go straight down and connect a crystal to source. It's a double-edged sword because if I'm trying to hit 2 crystals, it needs to be a little bit more precise, and it might go off to the side and screw me up. So the keyboard and mouse, you can get more precise angles, and it's a little bit more accurate. So now we have the swap crystals. These crystals are the fastest and probably the most ridiculous crystals in this game. Basically, when you connect with them, they will swap you to whatever source you are at. And if that source is a box or another movable object, it's going to swap that box into the position that key was in before. So this is where those puzzle elements are starting to kind of come together, and you're going to see more and more things that are a little bit more complicated. Some of the setups you're going to actually have to think about. Okay, cool. I need to swap this box into this position so I can gain access to this source and use this crystal. So the level before this was probably the most notorious level in 100%, and it's super hard. The timer is just really tight, and the strategy that I have that you might see on, I think I do it on at least a couple more levels, where you get to the gate and that stops your timer, and then you can go and feel free to finish the rest of the crystals, grab the rest of the essence that you need in order to finish out the 100%. So in the Blizzard, we also gain access to these little, like, I don't know what to call them. They're little flowy areas, but when you swap a crystal in, they're going to transport along that flowy area. So you have a little bit of an escort quest where you have to follow these boxes and use them and get their positioning in order to make sure that you get to the right location. Now, I'm also doing a trick here. So normally when you're playing through Evergate, you can't switch artifacts mid-level. It will just restart the level on you. But if you do a frame perfect artifact swap, you can switch artifacts mid-level. So I'm going between the Firecracker Tail and the Dragon Head on these levels. So the dragon head is the fastest form of movement in the game. It gives you I think it's like a 65% speed boost, but your shots burn source. So sometimes that's really bad. Like on this level, I don't want to burn the source in the upper left-hand corner because I need it to break 3 different crystals. You can't break them all at the same time. So I do have to swap off of the dragon head, go back onto the firecracker tail, just to make sure that I'm able to complete and break all those crystals. This level right here, we're going to start seeing another mechanic where there is a blizzard happening. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. We're in the blizzard and there's going to be falling debris. This game does use debris in a couple of different ways where stuff is going to fall from the sky periodically, and if you are in it when it's falling, it kills you. Coming into the last level of the blizzard, this level you're going to see there's just a bunch of junk in the middle, a lot of different crystals, and breaking all of them is kind of a pain because we're going to have that blizzard mechanic pop up again. Fortunately, I have the ice shield artifact. The ice shield makes me impervious to the falling ice, so I'm able to kind of take my time and just break those crystals as I see fit and finish off the level that way. The blizzard is probably one of the most technical levels. You can do a lot of them very, very quickly if you have like really good snap reactions with the swap crystals. Like once you hit a swap crystal, Key's position is already at the end of that swap crystal, even if the animation is not finished. So if you're really, really good, there are some ILs of blizzard levels that are just super fast, where you see them targeting the next crystal before Key's even out of the animation and finishing them in under a second. So right here we have the Summer Hunt. This is going to introduce us to the rocket crystal. So this little triangle projectile crystal, whatever angle you hit it at, it's going to shoot that direction. So I need to make sure to line Key up. So in this instance, I need to be kind of perpendicular to that rocket crystal to make sure I could break the breakable rocks there on the left-hand side. This level right here, it has a lot of backtracking and you're kind of going all over the place. This was one of the, I would say, more complicated levels to figure out 100% for, because like these crystals here on the left, they don't actually do anything. You don't need them to complete the level. They're just kind of there to make it a little bit more complicated. But we get through that one pretty easily. This level introduces the caribou. So you can see there in the upper left-hand corner, we have this happy little caribou right here, and we're jerks. We're gonna go ruin his day. But in order to unlock the gate, so you can look there in the bottom left, and you can see the gate is blocked off by these rocks. So what I need to do is go up to this caribou and hit him with a missile, because I'm a jerk. He's just chilling, he's hanging out, but I want to get to the gate. So we're gonna go hit him with this rocket and finish off the level. Now there are going to be some more levels here that have multiple caribou, and you do need to hit them in sequence. So this level right here, there are 2 caribou. There's one directly to the right, and there's one up top. The one up top won't spawn until I hit the one on the right here, but there's some crystals on the left that I need to gather first, and it's a mess. In addition, these missile crystals, you can combine them with other crystals. So if there's like a swap crystal and a missile crystal that are online, I could hit both of them, teleport, and use the missile crystal at the same time. These levels start to get very, very complicated pretty quickly. So you're going to see that combining power right here. You combine fire crystals with the rocket crystals in order to burn these barriers that are made of ice. This is going to be used a couple more times throughout the run as well. Yeah, so you basically have to, like, I screwed up there. I missed the combination. So this is one disadvantage of playing on the controller. Like, I can't tell my joystick to auto target both of them. It's not going to work that way. It's just going to pick one of them, and if I'm not at like a very precise angle, it's going to choose one and not miss the other. So this level has some more caribou that we have to hit. This is I think one of my first keyboard mouse levels. There's a lot of combining here, so like I need very precise angles on these rocket crystals, and then I'm combining like a swap crystal and a boost crystal up top there in order to get up top and get the angle correct to hit that caribou from above. So moving into the last level here, this level is actually it's more complicated than it looks. There's a lot of crystals that are just kind of all over the place. The intended path through this has you put out the fire there. So if you use, so you can actually put out fires if, yeah, you can put out fires, and you can, it has you swap a box into that lower channel, and then you use the box to gain height, and it's a mess. But the speedrun route, we are able to use a pretty precise angle on the rightmost stone crystal and hit the source that you're not intended to hit. So normally you'd have to have a box and transport it over and then use that. It's slow. We're gonna skip all of that. Yeah, that's Summer Hunt. Oh, I did neglect to mention that the Blizzard, Summer Hunt, and Northern Lights all take place in Alaska. That's why we are in like a happy snowy land. So Northern Lights, this introduces us to the Void Crystal. The Void Crystal is pretty neat. I think it's probably one of my favorite crystals. But basically it's going to, whenever you connect with it, it's going to open up a circular zone. This circular zone does scale based on how many void crystals you break in the same shot of your soul flame. So by connecting 2 of them, you're able to make a bigger void, and it's kind of neat. But I don't like that's really not used too much in the speedrun, but casually it definitely is. There are also artifacts that increase the size of the void to make it a little bit better, but you do kind of swim through it. So if you think, yeah, so you actually have like multi-directional movement within it. Normally in this game you only have the WASD and then the 4 diagonals, but when you're within these voids you can move any direction that you choose. Yeah, this level is probably one of my least favorite levels. We are introduced to a mechanic here, these little white beam things. I don't really know what to call them. But when you run through them, it is going to make all of your void crystals disappear. So you do have to plan ahead and like plot, okay, I need to use my void crystal here and then move through the white in order to get access to the areas that I need to get to. But I have to use the dragon head on this level, which again burns source, and it makes some of these areas just more dangerous than they need to be. So if you look at the second section, I need to hit both of these void crystals with the same shot while jumping off to the right to gain that essence. I need to be able to hit this void crystal here at a really weird angle in order to get back in, use the boost crystal to get back up top, and then finish off the level. Without the dragon head, this level is, I don't want to say impossible, but it's very, very difficult to do in the timer. So again, we're trying to finish all 3 of those boxes in the top right, the essence, the crystals, and the speedrun timer, all in the same run. If you don't, you're going to have to repeat the level, and that's slow. We don't like being slow, we like being fast. I also haven't mentioned the game's slowdown mechanic because I don't use it very much, but there are 2 different slowdowns. There's one that like decreases the speed by 50%, and you can kind of line up shots that way. Again, that's pretty slow. You don't ever really want to slow down unless like you have to make a very precise shot. Just in the case of that one right there where I had to line up 3 boost crystals. And then there's also a just complete pause time shot. And again, that's slow. I try to avoid using it whenever possible, but sometimes you just have to. Like, if you need to make that shot, I'm going to take the consistency, especially on some of these later levels that are like 20-30 seconds long. I would rather take half a second to line up a shot than to waste my shot and have to redo a 30-second level. So this is our Escort quest level. We have to float this box all the way down to the bottom. This one actually has some really interesting cheese in the any percent category, but since I have to break all the crystals, we get to guide the box all the way to the bottom and then use a swap crystal to get back up to the top. Again, that's a pretty precise shot, and make sure I hit the void crystal so I have a place to swim. You don't really have a ton of room to jump out of the void zones and like gain a bunch of height, so you really have to make sure that you are able to hit both of those crystals in that same sequence, or else you're just stuck on the bottom and you have to repeat the level. It's really unfortunate when that happens. All right, we are moving into Schoolyard. So this is the New York portion of Key's memories. We gain access to the Fierce Flight crystal here. So this crystal is very similar to like the Feather in Celeste, where once you gain access to it, you have full direction of movement, and it's either controlled by my joystick or my mouse pointer, which gets really, really weird. Like, I think probably the most uncomfortable thing in this game is using your mouse pointer to fly and then having to hit a crystal that's directly behind you, because you have to point your mouse pointer in the direction you want to go and then point it at the crystal directly behind you and go back. It's really, really difficult to do and takes a lot of practice to get it right. So most of these levels I do try to play on controller. Just it's so much more comfortable having full direction of movement with a joystick than it is on a mouse. I don't know what it is about it, it's just the way it is. Also in these levels we have these balls that we can manipulate by hitting them with our Fierce Flight or boost crystals, and you have to like position them into place to get access to the areas you want to go. We also have the new broken glass here. Yeah, we have to dodge the broken glass. It's bad. This level also has some pretty cool cheese where you could fly over the top of the level and complete it that way, but that was in the old version and that got patched out. I would like to think that I am part of the reason they patched that, because I did that on the Switch version of the game before the PC version came out. This is probably one of the more notorious levels for killing runs. You have to push the ball through these source blocks, and then you have to navigate it through this broken glass up to the top in order to use the Fierce Flight to finish off the level. It's a pain. It really just is. This level looks more complicated than it is. Basically, you're just kind of flying throughout the level using these various void crystals, and then you Fierce Flight straight to the end. It's not that big of a deal, but the Fierce Flight can break the glass panes that you see right here. Once the glass panes are broken, you do have that environmental hazard that's now on like the bottom and the top of that gap right there. So it's just something else to look out for. You can't, like, if you're flying too close to the top or the bottom of these glass panes, you will hit that and die. Yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but it can happen. This level, you're basically chasing your fire crystals. So you start igniting the source, and then your fire crystals are going to be burning it, and you have to go fast, because if you don't have source, you can't connect crystals, and you can't complete the level. So getting through this level while hitting everything is fairly difficult as well. This is another level that's just, it's a pain casually, but once you get it, it feels really, really good. But that's the last level of Schoolyard. All right, we are moving on. So there's some story bits going on here. We get introduced to Ha, who is Key's other half. It's basically Key's evil half, and it's all the yeah, it's basically Key's evil half is the best way to put it. Key's brother, and is trying to encourage Key to be bad and not come to terms with the various things that Key is dealing with in the afterlife. So this level, we are introduced to the Pull Crystal. It's these little windmill blade type things. I guess that's the best way to describe them. But they will pull you toward whatever source that you attach to. Now, you can combine these like every other crystal. You can combine the pull crystals and get a multiplied effect, and it's pretty cool. We also get the air raid mechanic in this level. So you see here, you have the gate blocked off by a bunch of rocks. Then you need to activate the air raid by clicking on the radio. So like here you see the radio on the left hand side, and that's going to trigger an air raid. The air raid is going to have environmental fire come from above, and you need to make sure that you're under cover to avoid that, and then it'll break open the gate. This level is one of the more interesting puzzles in 100%. So normally, if you're just playing through the game casually, you can just go one direction or the other. There's like 5 different paths through this level, and you can just kind of pick whichever one's most comfortable to get your way to the end. Now with 100%, I need to break all of these various crystals. So I'm basically going in like a zigzag pattern. I go up, I go down, I go up, I go down, just to make sure I break all of these different crystals throughout the level. In addition, you also have to deal with all this falling debris and make sure you don't hit that because it's a pain. And you see right there, I finished with 0.5 seconds left on my timer. That's a very, very tight speedrun timer for that level. This level is probably one of the coolest levels. You get to combine a lot of the different crystals that you're seeing throughout the other levels. So like you combine these pole crystals with a swap crystal, and that'll swap the box in as well as send key flying in that direction. Yeah, so you combine these various crystals and just kind of fly throughout this level. This one, I am trying to time it so the air raid, like you're barely outrunning it, and you can swap yourself through the air raid. When Key is in a swap, like I said, Key's positioning is already at that end point. So like Key's body never actually passes through, that animation, and you're already at the end. So there's no damage hitbox, you don't get hit by it. This level, you have a bunch of like destructible terrain. So like we had those falling leaves, we had the falling ice. We also have these falling log type things. It's just a reskin of the same thing where it's breakable, you land on it, it goes away. Pretty simple mechanic there. Also the air raid can wipe it out. So you kind of have to plan where you're going to have that air raid fall to make sure that you still have enough terrain that you can hide under so you don't get killed by the air. Yeah, we're just kind of moving right along. This is the last level of Falling Sky, and it's not too difficult. Basically, you have to get all the way back to the middle section in order to make sure you're safe from the air raid because there's no terrain on the left hand side. And you also see that the air raid lights these fires. That is used a little bit later on as part of a puzzle, but here it adds an extra hazard that you do have to deal with. Yeah, we're back into the library, and we're gonna get some more RP stuff here. Alright, so that is probably the longest section of RP in the run, outside of the end sequence, but it's okay. All the RP sections in this run are fairly quick. So now we get access to Neon Alley. Neon Alley gives us these jump crystals. So these little green springy things, anytime you connect one of them, you get an extra jump. So if you are flying and you connect one jump, you can connect another, you can connect another, and you can store, I believe, up to 10 jumps within these. So it gets pretty crazy. There is a bonus level that uses, I think, all 10 jumps in order to let you finish off the run. We also have these EMP zones. So these like blue hexagonal electrified things. These are EMP zones. You cannot use your soul flame while you're within an EMP zone. So it's just adding an extra layer of complexity where you have to think about, okay, cool, I need to be above this EMP zone, connect this crystal, and then go to the left of this EMP zone, connect this crystal. We also have a new environmental hazard. We have these little laser thingies. Yeah, it's just kind of trying to fit with the theme here of Neon Alley, where we have some different environmental hazards compared to what we were at before. In this level, we get the drones. So this is another new mechanic. This game loves to just throw new mechanics at you. But these drones, anytime you're in the white area, if you're there too long, they're going to start shooting at you. You can destroy these drones, like with a boost crystal, you can go in and blow them up. But for the most part, that's pretty slow. And we really don't need to in a speedrun setting. We can just avoid them. It's not that big of a deal. So this level, we have the first instance of destructible EMP zones. So this first area right here, you have to blow that up to be able to use the EMP zone and connect with this swap crystal. You have another very, very large EMP zone up top that you're going to want to disable. But yeah, and you also have the drones that you're trying to contend with. You have to open up the gate. You see there in the top right, you have that little flowery barrier thing that needs to be broken with that missile crystal. And there's just a lot of various pieces of the puzzle that you have to deal with here. In addition, I'm using the dragon head, which makes it so all of the source that I use gets burnt, and it makes things a little bit more tight, a little bit more complicated. This level is pretty cool. I actually didn't know what the left-hand side of this level looked like until I started running 100%, because you just don't need it in any percent. But yeah, so you have to eventually take out this EMP zone and use this chain of jump crystals right here in order to finish the level. And then we're moving on to the last level of Neon Alley, and you can actually just go straight over this level using the boost crystals and the jump crystal. That is slow. It's slower in any percent too. You do have to actually move throughout the level because it's faster just to hold right than it is to go up and over. But this is some of the more precise shots in the run, making sure that I get all of these before the source gets burnt. I do have to use that slowdown mechanic. If you're really good, you can do it without that, but the timing gets very, very. All right, we're making good time here. So this is introducing the game's boss. So we're not done with the game yet, but we have to fight a boss here. So we have the crow here, and this crow just gets cheesed. It's cheesed so hard. So these rocket crystals, we have an artifact, the spirit arrow, that makes these rocket crystals home. So I just kind of have to be in the general direction, and it's going to find the target that it wants to hit, that being the crow. So this bird goes down fairly quickly. Nothing really to fuss about. One thing I do get asked is, why don't you break all of the crystals in the crow fight? Well, we only really do what is tracked. So in the crow fight and in the final world, the crystal breaking isn't tracked. So there's no way to tell that you got it or not. There's no way to verify it. So we just kind of omit that from the 100% category. All right, so we are moving on to the Underlands. This is the first one that is going to add, it doesn't really add a new crystal, but it does add a new mechanic. And you'll see here when we first zone in, we're going to have these boxes. On the box, you're going to see the symbol of a crystal, and when I connect my soul flame to them, it's going to switch all of these wild crystals to the crystal that I connected with. I hope I explained that okay. So I have to swap the different crystal types around in order to gain access to the crystal that I want, and then use that to finish the puzzle. So right there, I missed the speedrun timer on that level, so I had to do it twice. But that's not that big of a deal. It's a pretty quick level. This level is not too bad, but it's pretty difficult to actually get first try. You have to be very, very quick on your swapping here in order to get those to boost crystals to get up to that final leaf, the final essence up there. And then this level is probably the most notorious 100% level. There are 20 crystals in this level, and it's basically just a big void with a bunch of the boxes on top. And you can see there that they all have different types too. So I have a different plan for each section of how I'm going to break these crystals in order to make sure that I'm able to break all of them and get to the end within the speedrun timer. I think I don't do it here. Sometimes if I'm a little bit slow, I'll go to the gate before breaking those last two fierce flames, and just to make sure that I get the speedrun timer. But I was very, very quick on that one, so it was unnecessary. Didn't need to do it. That level, the level prior to this is also one of the fastest levels in the any percent run, because you can just off screen hit the swap crystal box and swap straight to the end. It's pretty ridiculous. This is another level where I do tag the gate before getting the final essence there, just because I want the speedrun timer to stop. So here we're introduced to these expanding fire void zone type things. These are bad. They will kill you. One thing they do, they will break crystals for me. So you'll see it on, I believe, the last level of this world, I'm going to be relying on these expanding fires to break some crystals that I need broken, because it does count for completion, and it's just as if I shot them with the soul flame and I used them. So this level, there's a bunch of breakable terrain that you have to kind of navigate around. This one's not that big of a deal. It's pretty intuitive. But this last level, you're falling, and there's a lot of different crystals. I'm only going to be hitting the crystals that these fires don't break, because yeah, it's really hard to get all of these in one go without doing that. You can do it. It is actually slower to do it that way though. So I just kind of wait here at the bottom, and you're going to see that number over on the right chunk up. Once we hit 12, we're done, and we progress out of the level, and that is the Underland. All right, so we're moving on to the Storm. This is the final sequence of the game, and it's going to be combining a lot of different mechanics that have been popping up throughout the run. There is 5 levels in this area. 3 of them are the traditional puzzle style that we've been seeing throughout the game, and the last 2 are something special. In the last area, we gained access to the Void Heart, which is the best artifact in the game, and it's pretty ridiculous. It allows you to use crystals without connecting them to source. That, paired with artifact swap, is going to make these levels very quick. Again, these levels aren't actually tracked for 100%. Like, there's no, like, if you look on the right, there's no speedrun timer, there's no essence count, there's no crystal count, so we don't actually have to break all the crystals. So we're going to be using some artifact swaps here, that artifacts you don't normally see. Like the whalebone rib right here, it increases my speed throughout these void zones. I'm going to use the storm heart to break open this area right here. I already hit the air raid, and that's going to break open the exit, completing this level very quickly. Here we're basically going to teleport straight to the end, so there's a pretty precise shot here. I believe I get it first try in this run, where I use the storm heart to swap a crystal straight to the end. That shot is really precise, and the camera doesn't even pan fast enough, so I do have to wait there for a second to make sure that I got it, and I was able to do it fast enough. Here we use the Volatile candle artifact. This was probably one of my favorite artifacts. It speeds up your fierce flight by just like an absolute ton. So I'm using this one fire crystal right here, and I'm breaking through the ice and just flying straight to the top of the level. The any percent run does something pretty similar, but this is technically faster if you do it first try, which I didn't get, but that's okay. It's still pretty swaggy. Alright, so we're moving on to the last section. So we have 2 more levels to go before we are done with the run. Yeah, so this is kind of the escape section of the run. We have these expanding fire areas, and then we have something special. So this zone has a new mechanic it's adding to it that allows you to use your power without like connecting any crystals, just by hitting the source. And I get the skip right here to get out of bounds, which skips a section of the level. That's pretty cool. But that first section is boost crystals. This next section, if you're playing on the Switch, don't do this because it is going to probably just freeze your game. But you have void zones, and anytime you connect with the source, you create a void zone. This like absolutely tanks my FPS. Normally I run at like 400, and this goes down to like 60. And on Switch, it just brings the console to its knees. So that strategy is completely unique to the PC version, and it's pretty cool. Here we have the jump crystal. So basically you have infinite jump, and you just kind of float throughout these sections. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty easy. It's not that bad. In the last section, we get fierce flight. So I'm going to switch back to my my fierce boot and fly very quickly to the end. And once we connect with the key in the end, we're just about done. So timing on this doesn't actually end until the credits start rolling, and we have just a bunch of RP that we're gonna have to sit through. I apologize. This was not my decision, but we're finishing out the RP of the story. So Key meets back up with Ha, and we get one final memory sequence here, where Key is going to be coming to terms with Ha, and they are going to be now on talking terms, and everything is happy and dandy as they both live happily ever after in the afterlife. It's actually a pretty good story. I shouldn't be making light of it. It does deal with a lot of various topics that are topical right now. Like there's some like drug abuse topics and like various different things that you don't see in a speedrun that Key does go through and experiences, and it's like it's pretty heavy and there's some good content to it. But we skip all that in a speedrun, so we don't have to worry about it. Yeah, Key realizes that Ha is just part of himself, and yeah, now we can be done. Yeah, as we're flying up, I just want to thank the games committee for watching this video. I hope it was interesting enough to watch all the way through. That'd be pretty rad. And I really do hope Evergate gets considered. It's a pretty quick platformer. It's really accessible. It's not terribly difficult to get into the speedrunning scene, and the devs are just absolutely awesome. Like, I cannot say enough good things about Stone Lantern Games. They are so good. They've been with the speedrunning community the entire time, and I think that's just super awesome. But yeah, this is my 100% submission. I'm also going to be submitting any percent. There are some really good donation incentives for this. There's some cutscenes that I would like to have played. You can choose your soul flame color, so the color that's shooting out of Key the entire run. That could be a donation incentive to pick as well. And like I said, there's a set of advanced levels that I'm going to submit as a donation incentive as well. But yeah, this game is just absolutely fantastic, and I hope it gets its shot at GDQ. It was featured on one of the hotfix shows a while back. We did 3 runs for that, and I think they were fairly well received. So I think that this would be a great game to get on the big stage, and I would love to see it at SGDQ. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hope y'all have a good day.